What is up, bros? Me Josh here. In today's video, we are going over the Tier 10 Royal Navy Destroyer, the Daring, and this ship is currently work in progress, so stats are subject to change, and it could obviously change before it goes live, but we got a nice little preview. So of course, top right corner, work in progress still, and this ship, I think overall has some great potential. I think this line has overall great potential, but I feel like throughout this entire line the same critiques are going to kind of happen, and kind of the same pluses and minuses of these ships are going to kind of be almost repetitive. I'll be going over every ship on the line, but right now let's focus on the Tier 10 Daring. So just keep in mind when I'm talking about values, the captain I am currently using right now is a 14-point captain. Downside about this line is I feel like the majority of it does kind of require inertia fuse to be extremely effective, and with that we're running a priority target, a 14-point captain, priority target, last stand, survivability expert, concealment expert, and then inertia fuse. I feel like inertia fuse is very needed for the ship. The downside about that is it does tend to require, especially for a destroyer, a high level captain to kind of make it work. By the time you are Tier 10, you most likely will have a 14-point captain, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but earlier in the line I feel like it was still pretty needed, and that can be a downside for a line like this. I do feel like the ship has, and this line has, some potential. Right now though, I feel like it might need some tweaking. So diving into the ship stats, 24,300 life. That's with survivability expert, of course, but that's pretty damn competitive against all other destroyers at this tier, even like the Grozvoy with its heel. I mean, you're right there with a little bit more than the Z52, so that's pretty damn good, and even higher than the gearing. The guns are 3x2, so you're firing 6 shells at one time of 114mm shells, and then basically needs inertia fuse, but you get that certain magic number of pen value with that, with a 2.5 second reload. Now I took the torp reload module. You could take the reload module, so it'd even be a little bit quicker with one of the last slots for the modules, but I went with torp, so 2.5 second reload, which is actually extremely fast. So that's pretty nice. And then just a standard range of 13.8 kilometers. So that's actually pretty far. Ups and downs of that is, one, you can rain down hell on certain ships from that range, but overall you're going to need you're going to be spotted from, of course, almost 14 kilometers on a relatively high sitting destroyer. But the upside about this is you can absolutely shred DDs with a 2.5 second reload like the Shimakaze. Not much you can do, but downside is I was kind of noticing, especially with this ship, you are going to be taking battleship AP even higher because of kind of how high you sit up. If you've ever played, let's say, like the Yu Yang, you know that basically overall you kind of sit low in the water. It seems to sit pretty high in the water, and that's kind of a downside of getting blocked with battleship AP. It's just what it is. But just like that, you can pop a Shimakaze and just absolutely shred them in no time, just because of such a high reload. And there's some battleship AP right there. Not much you can really do. So 3x2, 114mm guns, 2.5 second reload, almost 14 kilometer range, 7% fire chance. Now it would be normally 9%. But that is with inertia fuse, and then demo expert if you wanted to, let's say at 17 points, pick that up. I think since this line is kind of focused around guns, maybe picking up BFT. And man, that guy's really trying to hit me in smoke. I'm not there anymore, buddy. You gotta move from smoke. Don't stay in smoke, especially when there's DD there. So torp setup though is 2x5, 10 kilometer torp. So basically tied for the shortest at Tier 10, outside of obviously the Kaba. Kaba is basically a cruiser, but you're 10 kilometers, lots of radar right now, so it can be a little tough. Really downside about these torps is you either get single fire torps or you get widespread. So I think that's one of the biggest critiques for this line is who cares about widespread. I honestly think these ships would be so much more fun if they just had a narrow spread, because widespread, who uses that outside of maybe like a low tier ship? I really wish they would change that up and make it either single fire or narrow spread like the cruisers are. I really hope they change that, and I hope that's something that they change before it goes live. 102 second reload, that is with the torp module, so pretty competitive for everything else at this tier. But again, the downside, single fire and or widespread. So there you go. And see, as you could tell, I was kind of waiting, even though this Tirpitz had, I could have been popping shots because of the trajectory. That other battleship that was off to my left was still so close that I couldn't really fire because I would have been detected, and of course I don't want to get blocked for the rest of my 13k life. So I kind of had to wait. If it was maybe a little less, I mean, it seems a little weird to like want a little less range, but with how this spotting mechanic works. If it would have been about 12 or something like that, I would have kind of actually probably preferred it a lot with these ships. But 13.8, I guess it's okay. The ship and these lines actually in high tiers especially have decent AA. It's just there's no AA consumable. The consumables are repair, smoke, and sonar. So there's no AA consumable. There's no chance to take it. So you have this stagnant AA, kind of like you would as the Akazuki. And there's the Benson. Apparently he took a torp and smoke. And so good side about this is you have a low detection, and you can come in and then clean up any destroyer. You're going to be pretty nasty against DDs, and I've noticed that going in this, that my main targets in this while playing these ships were going against destroyers, because it seems like the strengths of this line are, one, holding down an entire side, and then two, hunting down DDs. Again, we'll get to that in a second. So it has decent AA, as well as we're going to rip through a Benson with 2200 life in no time. Not much you can really do. And there we go. So 2 kills so far. We killed 2 DDs so far. 35 knots. So that's what I'm kind of talking about with hunting down somebody. You're the slowest tier 10 destroyer by far. Yeah, these ships are slow, and they have no speed boost. So not much they can really do. Anything that wants to get away from you can. Upside about this ship is 5.7 kilometer detection, and you can kind of get close to something, but if something wants to get away or something wants to chase you down, they're going to, because you just can't catch up. It's impossible. Either they have a potential speed boost to even give you that, but you're just the slowest tier 10 destroyer, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's not like you can morph. So maybe they'll boost the speeds. Maybe they'll give it a speed boost consumable. I mean, we've seen a pattern for ships recently where there's just been more and more and more and more consumables. I mean, look at the current Wooster. There's like, what, 5 things, and you have to look down, and you're hitting like the 9 key on your numpad because there's so many consumables. This is very simple. It's very old school. There's only a few. So although you do have a low concealment, second at this tier, just barely getting outbeaten by the Shimakaze. If something wants to get away or someone wants to hunt you down, they're going to. You're just too freaking slow. 5.7 detection though, which is actually extremely good for this type of boat, because you can get so close to something. Although I would have loved to been able to kind of run, and the best part about Pan Asian DDs is they really can't do anything when you smoke up and they are spotted and you're not. With a low detection, these types of guns, you're extremely dangerous, and I feel like Wargaming is actually making a pretty unique playstyle, which I'm actually okay with. But the part that is bad is kind of highlighted in these ships, and what I mean by that is that very low detection, great. Hydro, which this ship has, and the Hydro is active for an extremely long time, 3 straight minutes with a cooldown of 2. So active for 180 seconds, and then but the ranges on this Hydro is extremely poor. So spotting torps at a range of 2.6 kilometers is almost laughable. Some of the torps are spotted near that range anyway. And then spotting ships at 3.9, which is pretty mediocre. Let's compare that to just the German sonar, which of course is the strongest in the game. But German sonar picks up torps at 4 kilometers and spots ships at almost 6 at 5.88 kilometers. So you have the sonar and it's extremely long, but you don't really have, like, it's not super useful, I guess. There's not a lot of times you'll actually be able to use it. But one thing you do is you have these extremely fast firing guns, and you have the ability to, pretty much, we got lucky with that one when we clipped. You have this ability to kind of play this defensive, and I do like that. That's what I'm kind of saying is this line has great potential because we haven't seen something like this. I would consider the German destroyers extremely offensive because they have extremely fast. They have great guns. They have fast reloading torps, and they have this long range sonar. What we could potentially see with this line is a more defensive, and being that, like, basically like a role character, a role ship that we really haven't kind of seen before. And one thing I've kind of noticed a lot when I play these ships, especially the Daring and other of the high tiers, is you tend to get in one area and just hold it down, and you just hold it down for the rest of the game. And it's really tough for anything to push into you because you're in the screen for torps, and you can even see the penetration values on the battleship as well. AP is actually pretty solid, and we even started using it, although I find it so tough to use AP when I have an inertia infused captain. It seems like a wasted captain. But I was starting to use this against destroyers, and it was just shredding. So that 2.5 kilometer, or the 2.5 second reload against DDs, I was getting like 2,500, 3K salvos. You're gonna absolutely shred ships. So AP was actually pretty damn good, as well as just the HE being pretty solid with even a high fire chance because of the rate of fire. There's just so much. And again, if you can find an island, camp behind, you can just be that that memer. Now we did try to do some open water playing as well with this ship. The ship just seems to just be too big to really make it efficient and just not fast enough. Thing about the Cava, open water ship, even the Grozovoy, is you have speed to go along with it. This, you're super slow. You're just sitting there. You sit relatively high in the water, and you'll just get planked out of the game with a pretty mediocre with that speed. So upsides about this ship is, although it does take a decent amount of captain skills, I think that Henson Yang tried to put torps on me. Upsides about the ship: really fast reload, really good detection, and I think a really kind of fun playstyle that's new. Downside about this is, so upside I think is like the guns. I think those guns are very usable and very effective. Detection, low detection. Downsides about the ship, it's just so slow. AA, although it's relatively high, you can't really use it. And the Hydro, I think the Hydro has a chance. Now, if they do want to make slow torps, or slow ships, I think that's fine, but you have to somehow buff the Hydro. There has to be some kind of give and take. Now, I actually enjoyed playing some of these ships. I actually enjoyed playing a bunch of them, but I don't think I would go out of my way to play these, right? If I wanted to run a Hydro ship, I would just run a German ship. If I wanted to run kind of a torpedo ship, I'd run a, you know, a Pan-Asian, or especially if I wanted to run like an anti-destroyer ship, I would just run, let's say, the Gearing or something else. You know, I think there's already better there. I think they really need to somehow get a situation of making, if they're gonna go slow, then buff the Hydro. If not, leave the Hydro as is. They're gonna have to make them a bit faster because they're just so freaking slow. And to God, get rid of the widespread torps. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's actually useless. We were trying to play around for an entire game with it, and it's so, I don't know, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So I can't stand it. But anyways, there is great potential for this line. High health pool, good guns, and a unique playstyle, which I always like to try to find. I feel like Wargaming always tries to find kind of its unique playstyle, and I feel like it's there. It just needs some tweaking. Again, luckily it's work in progress, but still. This is the Tier 10, the Daring, the Royal Navy Destroyer for the Tier 10. Again, still work in progress, guys, so things are subject to change. We've kind of gone over what I hope they do. And anyways, we'll be going over the rest of this line. It's going to kind of seem repetitive because the strengths are there and the weaknesses are going to be there for basically every ship. But we'll be hitting every line, every ship on this line, and I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. But that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Remember, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.